right, now let's talk about some quarterbacks quickly, Steph. It's our last two deep shots of today's episode. We both have some pretty deep names here at the quarterback position. I'll go first. My deep shot at the quarterback spot is Teddy Bridgewater.
Ooh.
Yes, this might be a little bit of a homer pick because the both of us went to the University of Louisville. But Teddy right now is going as the quarterback 27. He is undrafted. He is free.
He's free.
And I think he's gonna have value this season. I think if anything, he's a streamer, or you could pick him up late in drafts and see what happens through the first couple weeks of the season. Teddy signed a 3-year, $63 million deal to go to the Panthers. That's really good quarterback money. I think he is a very good quarterback. He is a better quarterback than he gets credit for in this league. And I look at what he did last season in New Orleans from weeks 3 through 7. He got 5 starts. He was the quarterback 12 over that span. So he was a quarterback 1 in the time he got last season. He was right at 17 fantasy points per game. That was right around Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady's points per game last year. So he's proven that he can be an effective fantasy football quarterback. He was streamable last season on the Saints. And I think in Carolina this year, he's going to be even more streamable and maybe even a week-to-week starter because the pass volume is going to go up. And yes, with more volume, the efficiency comes down. But Bridgewater's been close to 70% completion percentage for the majority of his career. So maybe that comes down a little bit, but the volume should go up significantly. The Panthers last season were second in the NFL in pass attempts because they were just in boat races trying to keep up with other offenses because their defense, quite frankly, was trash. They were the second worst defense last season in terms of points allowed. They allowed 29.4 points per game.
Sheesh.
And when I look at what they did this offseason, that defense isn't really going to get much better. Luke Kuechly was battling injuries, but he retired. They lost top cornerback James Bradbury in free agency. Say what you want about whether he's good or not, but he got a $43 million deal. They lost D lineman Mario Addison and Gerald McCoy. Both of them got decent contracts elsewhere. So this defense lost a lot of that veteran leadership. In the draft, they used every single one of their draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. So there's going to be a lot of rookies out here starting in the NFL. Welcome to the big leagues, kids. But, you know, I can't expect this defense is going to get much better immediately in 2020. So I think what that means for Teddy Bridgewater is he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. They averaged 39 pass attempts a game last season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Bridgewater come close to that in 2020. They have a lot of good weapons, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, who they brought in free agency. They still have DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel there as well. So for me, I look at the offense here. There's plenty of weapons for Teddy. I think the volume's going to be there. He is a good, efficient, accurate passer. So I think he's going to have a really good year, and he's going to drastically outperform that QB 27 ADP. He's going around guys like Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Drew Lock. I would take him over any of those names. And the one question mark for me is really the offensive line. But even with a shaky offensive line, there's still plenty of value for Teddy this year.
There is a world where he, really does finish this year as kind of that fringe quarterback 1. He's been efficient, especially in the deep middle of the field. A lot of people say, oh, he's a conservative passer. He actually had one of the highest passer ratings last year when targeting the deep middle of the field. So I see that as a perfect complement for Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel's skill set. I think we're going to see DJ Moore slide right into kind of the Michael Thomas role that we saw when Teddy was with the Saints, which was providing value. And, you mentioned it, right? Like Bridgewater is an upgrade over Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen had many, many weeks. I remember there was some last year in redraft where I was actually losing because Kyle Allen was putting up over 20 fantasy points and just destroying my week. There was one, he had a game against at New Orleans, which if you remember that game, it was a shootout, came down to a field goal at the end of the game that the Panthers, I believe, missed and gave the Saints a chance to drive back and score. He had 256 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and then had another, call it 10 yards on the ground. So there is a world where Teddy is just as efficient throwing 2 to 4 touchdowns a game, especially in shootout game scripts. I really do like Teddy as a deep option, and I think he's being criminally underrated in terms of his ADP and just the expectations for what the Panthers are going to be able to do. Even if he is checking it down to McCaffrey, 10 times a game, that's still yards after catch that he's getting credit for. So, no, I'm with you 100% in terms of Teddy being underrated and as a late quarterback option that you can take.